Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today to attend the webinar, コミカレからスタートするアメリカ留学 Options and Opportunities through Community Colleges. I'm Sasada, EducationUSA advisor in Tokyo. I'll be the MC for today. So どうぞよろしくお願いします。First, I'd like to introduce a little bit about EducationUSA services. EducationUSA is a U.S. State Department of advising network in more than 117 countries in the world. We promote U.S. higher education to international students by providing accurate, comprehensive, and current information and advice about studying at U.S. colleges and universities. In Japan, we have 6 EducationUSA centers: Sapporo, Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, Fukuoka, and Okinawa, run by the U.S. Embassy, U.S. Consulate, and Fulbright Japan. So if you have any questions, please contact the EducationUSA centers nearby. This program is hosted by EducationUSA Tokyo. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about our future event, which is on next Monday. We will have a webinar on 21世紀のクリエイティブなSTEMキャリアを考える on October 24 Monday. So I hope you can join them. Okay, thank you. So now I would like to introduce our 2 excellent speakers from the United States. Miss Cristina Delgado, Irvine Valley College, California, and Dr. Alfredo Varela, University of Oregon. So now I'd like to hand it over to you, Christina and Alfred. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will hand it over to Dr. Alfredo. Dr. Varela.
皆さん、はじめまして。バララと申します。University of the Oregon 大学から今日はコミュニティカレッジの opportunities の話します。So we're going to do this in English. We're going to start our presentation now. We're going to talk about some of the opportunities that you can have by attending a community college. So the university college degree is composed of a number of different steps. The first step towards a college degree is, of course, graduating from high school. Many of you right now are likely in high school. You're looking to graduate in the next year or two, and you're thinking about attending a university or college in the United States. We're going to talk about some of the advantages of going to a community college in the next few slides. But I just want to point out here that there is no single path to achieving your goal of getting a bachelor's or master's or even a PhD degree. In the United States, many students will take a intermediate or middle step between high school diploma and a bachelor's degree by attending a community college. And you can attend a community college anywhere from 1 to 2 years, depending on whether you're going full or part-time. And this permits you a number of different advantages that we're going to talk about in the next few slides. But one of those advantages is that in those 2 years, you can actually earn what's called an associate's degree. And the associate's degree is a 2-year degree. It is recognized as an official degree both throughout the United States and by the U.S. consul as you apply for your visa. So you can get the student visa for the United States when you apply for a community college and tell them you're earning an associate's degree. We will also talk about the opportunity to do an extra year of optional practical training between the associate's degree and the bachelor's degree a little later on. But because the associate's degree is an official degree, it does give you some additional options in between there. Once you leave the community college, you can take those 2 years of credits and learning that you've done and transfer into a 4-year college or university. And this permits you to continue on and complete the bachelor's degree still in 4 years within the same time frame that you would normally complete a bachelor's degree if you went directly to a university or college. And from there, you can proceed on to a master's degree and later a PhD program. But again, the associate's degree, attending a community college, is not a separate step, but it actually can be kind of one of the stepping stones to earning a bachelor's degree. Next, please. So here are a little bit different comparison of going to a community college as opposed to going directly into a university degree. So you can see on the left, by going to a community college, you complete the basic preparation for most bachelor degree programs. In your first 2 years of your bachelor's degree at almost all U.S. institutions, you are going to be required to take a certain set of courses known as your liberal arts requirements. Many of these courses are the same across all campuses, include courses like basic English course, history, first-year math courses, and they are the same across, regardless of whether you attend a 4-year university or a community college. So the education you receive is very similar and provides the same level of learning, regardless of whether you go to a community college or you go directly to a university. While there are some differences, what we're here to talk about today are the advantages of attending a community college. I spoke a little earlier about one of those advantages, and that is the fact that after 2 years of attending a community college, if you earn the 2-year associate's degree, you can take a year in between there and do what we know as optional practical training. Optional practical training is part of your student visa opportunities. It permits you to work in the U.S. full-time on a job outside of campus, earning money in a job that's related to your degree program. So if you earn an associate's degree in business, you can work practically in most jobs that's related to business before you go on to complete your bachelor's degree. But you don't have to do it, but you can. So it offers that additional opportunity to earn a little work study, to earn a little money, to get some job experience, and it's something that you should really consider taking advantage of. Once you're ready, you can transfer to a 4-year university and complete your degrees, usually in another 2 years. And of course, the final outcome is earning your bachelor's degree. Next, please. So some basic facts about community colleges, okay? As we all know, there are over 4,000 colleges and universities across the United States. Of that number, about 12,000 are community colleges. They exist across the United States in all major cities, and they offer opportunities for students who maybe want to take a slightly different path into a 4-year degree. Many students, including myself, spent some time at a community college studying prior to joining a four-year college. In total, there are about 8 million students across the United States studying in community colleges right now. Of that 8 million, close to 100,000 are international students who are taking advantage of this great opportunity. A large portion of those who complete their 2 years at a community college then enroll and finish their bachelor's degree at a four-year university. One of the great things about attending a community college is that most community colleges have really great relationships with four-year institutions, both directly in the same city or neighborhood or across the US. So it really offers a pathway into a bachelor's degree that for many is a great opportunity. Next, please. So again, all universities require students to take some level of what we call general education courses, usually in the first 2 years. These courses are first-year math courses, first-year English courses, sometimes general learning courses like history or philosophy, first-year psychology courses, and courses that give the students some breadth of knowledge and permit them to establish a good foundation for learning later on in their major course of study. So again, regardless of whether you attend a community college or go directly into a four-year university, you're going to be taking many of the same courses as you would in either case. Next.
I think too, in terms of the general education pattern in the US, it's quite different than other countries where when you go to university, you're going directly into your major. The US system is quite different in that first 2 years is really focusing on the general education pattern that Dr. Varela mentioned. And that's how we can exist, community colleges, because that's our specialty. We're focusing on that general education, and then we're giving you the major prep courses that you need so that when you're ready to transfer into that third year at university, you've had some basic major courses, but in those last 2 years at university is when you're really focusing on the major. And, you know, the systems are quite similar throughout the United States. I will admit I am a little biased since I'm in California. The California system is probably one of the best in terms of the simplicity and the direction that it gives students in terms of a guaranteed course transfer and a pattern that you can easily follow. And I think that one of the great things about the US system is the word choice and flexibility. And even though in general education, as was mentioned, you have to take certain courses like math and English and history and science, you're still going to have a choice in that pattern. So the California example, you have this IGETC plan, which is our plan for general education. And again, this is very similar throughout the US, but you'll see all these different areas of courses. But you're certainly not taking all of these classes. You'd never leave school. You're going to have choice. So even though you have to take an arts class, maybe you like art more than you like music. So again, it's that flexibility that you can take, but these courses are all guaranteed to transfer, assuming, of course, you get a passing grade. That's critical. But they're guaranteed to transfer. And you know, if you're following that pattern and taking those courses, they're going to easily get you into university. Again, even though this is a California plan directed at the UC and Cal States, they're accepted throughout the US because the first 2 years of the undergrad degree are pretty much the same everywhere. So in fact, our IVC, this IGETC plan, even though we're in California, it's accepted at University of Oregon as an example. And so that's an easy transferable pathway that you can follow. Then we have options, you know, the flexibility that you have upon graduation and what you can do at a community college sometimes are a little bit different than university. So students, certainly most international students, are coming to a community college for the transfer into university, and we'll get to the reasons about why in a minute. But not everybody wants to transfer. The other thing that community colleges do is we offer vocational degrees or employment preparation degrees. And these are degrees where you're taking more major courses, you're focusing more on the practical skills that you need to get into a career upon graduation. So degrees like accounting, right? So you're getting the practical skills to be ready for either entering employment for accounting or taking the required tests that you need to take to be an accountant. Those are the type of courses you're going to take. So you can graduate with the associate degree. Students can either return home, they can transfer, or as was mentioned, can do optional practical training, or what we call OPT. And as mentioned, it's an internship directly related to your major. You can do it anywhere in the United States, which is fantastic opportunity. So I don't know why you'd want to leave California or Oregon, but maybe you do. And maybe the career path that you have, like let's say you're interested in theater, maybe New York is a better option for you. OPT allows you that option to go do work, paid employment for a year in a job related to your major. You can do that after you graduate from a community college. And then when you get to a university like University of Oregon, you're going to have access to another year of OPT. So you can get additional employment in English on your resume so that when you're looking for your job back home or even in the US, you will have some actual work skills to show. So what are some of the advantages of going to a community college? Why would you go to another school as opposed to just going to one school all the way through? Well, the biggest reason, well, one of the reasons is the flexibility, right? We talked about the associate degree. An associate degree is a 2-year degree. They're either vocational, leading to employment, or a university transfer pathway. The associate degree, as was mentioned, is a recognized degree. We do also offer certificate programs, and certificate programs don't have that general education coursework. They're strictly courses in the specific field or major that you're interested in. They're much shorter. They're anywhere from 4 months to a year. Most of the time, if they're a year or longer, you can do OPT in those certificates as well. And they're developing, again, specific skills for you to enter into employment when you're finished. Community colleges, many of them, not all of them, but many of them do have intensive English programs associated with their college so that you can start at the intensive English school at the community college and then easily matriculate or transfer into the community college academic program. And then we also have a lot of students that will come to us because our admission process is pretty simple to do their gap year. So maybe your plan is not necessarily to get a US degree, but you want an educational experience abroad. You can do that quite easily at a community college where you can study courses for a semester or a year. You can choose the type of courses that you're wanting to take, learn new skills, and have an experience in the US. So those are some of the flexibility options that a community college offers to students. And maybe Dr. Verla can talk about costs.
Yes. I do want to comment and just reiterate or restate that California is the best example of a transfer process from community colleges to a 4-year college or university. I am also a little biased because that's where I grew up. That's where I attended community college. That's where I transferred to a 4-year university and later to graduate school. They have a very well recognized, regulated, and very great system for that. And as was already said, they many of the courses, all the courses that you would take at a community college in California or in any other state would easily transfer to a 4-year institution. But one of the great advantages of attending a community college is cost. Community colleges offer a low cost option for students who are working towards a four-year degree, but may not want to jump right into the costs associated with a four-year university. This is actually one of the reasons why I went to community college. So you can save a lot of money in terms of enrolling into community college. You can see that the cost per year is substantially less than going into a four-year university. Over the 2 years, depending on the difference in cost, you can save quite a bit, between $20,000 to $40,000 each year, depending on where you're going to school. So the cost of a community college is really one of the great advantages. And many community colleges do offer scholarships. They're not large scholarships, but that's because the tuition itself is not very large. So they help to bring down the cost even further and make it even more affordable.
I think another benefit of the community college is the easier admission process. An easier admission doesn't mean, you know, we're not a excellent academic institution. It just means that the US has developed a community college because we want everyone to have access to education. And so we've offered another avenue for students to be able to access higher education. So for example, we don't base admission on your GPA. Most community colleges need to see that you've graduated high school, although many will just accept students who are 18 years of age or older. So it just depends on the college. We don't require SAT or ACT tests for admission, and those will not be required for transfer either. And the English proficiency requirements, if they're required at all, are usually a bit less than university admission. Again, because sometimes we have a bit more support for students at the community college level. Also, admission decisions are much quicker than university. Takes just a few days, typically, maybe a week or so for most community colleges to process an admission file, and our deadlines are a bit later. So the admission process is easier and it's a little bit more flexible than universities. Some other advantages are, you know, perhaps for whatever reason, you weren't able with your high school grades to get into that dream school in the US, right? It's very hard to get into US University as a freshman. The requirements, the GPA requirements, the SAT score requirements sometimes make it difficult even for very good students to get in. But maybe you weren't that great in high school, it happens. We've had a lot of students come through in that way, turn it around, do really well at community college and get in their dream school. We offer letters of conditional admission for four-year universities, which sometimes help with the visa process, although getting the visa from Japan is relatively easy. I mentioned some of the academic and English language support that's available as well to help students. And I think a big one is the smaller class size. Now, certainly this differs by institution, and I'll have to ask Dr. Varela about his school specifically. But in the UC system, for example, because the UC schools like UCLA, UC Berkeley, they're huge, right? They're 20, 30,000 students. So if everybody in the school has to take these math, history, general education courses, their class size can be about 100 students in a class. That's pretty common. Community college class size is typically 30 students to a class. So it's much easier to have that faculty-student contact in a smaller class size. Our classes are also taught by faculty. A lot of times at universities, faculty are there also to research, to do other activities. Our faculty, they're all PhD level, they're all master's level, they're experts in their field, and they're there to teach the courses. And although most of us are not residential campuses, so typically we don't have dormitories on campus, we do offer a lot of student support. So there's a lot of campus clubs, sports, events going on campus so that you can enjoy your time, because you want to have a balance between study and fun. That's important. But Dr. Varela, what is the typical class size in University of Oregon? Because I actually am not sure myself, and this will give a good idea of like the differences in the US.
Yeah, I would say that unlike some of the very large universities, and you mentioned 20, 30,000, there are actually universities with populations of 150,000. So you can easily go into a class size of 400 or 500 students. So at the University of Oregon, we're about 20,000 students. While there are some classes that are about 100, generally those are just the first year English courses or math courses. And usually by the time you get into your, because we're on a quarter system, by the time you get into your third quarter, most of your classes are going to be around 20 to 30 students fairly quickly. But there are some larger classes that, just like you said, you know, community colleges offer great experience in a small class, direct contact with your professors, which offers advantages for international students who may not feel comfortable in such a large campus, surrounded by people from many different places.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you can kind of even just see from us speaking the differences in the US system. You know, the US is huge, so the difference in the US system is vast. So really doing your research, both when you're first coming to the US and even if you're planning on going to community college first and transferring, is really important. And accessing those resources at the school that you go to or through EducationUSA to find out what colleges and universities are available, not just if they have your major, not just if they have name recognition that you've heard of them, but to make sure that they are fitting what you will be most comfortable with. Do you want a huge campus? Do you want to be in a big city? Do you want to be in a smaller city? You know, what are the things that you're looking for, the supports that you need to be successful? Those are all very important. And you can always reach out to the schools. We're, by and large, very happy to answer your questions. And EducationUSA is a great resource as well for you all. So Irvine Valley College, to give you a little bit of information about us, we are a community college. We're part of the state system in California. There are 116 community colleges alone in the state of California. So it's a pretty common system. We are actually ranked #1 for university transfer in our state. We transfer the most students to university. So that's kind of what we're known for, maybe a bit more than vocational programs. And we're located in Irvine, which, as you can see from the photo on the bottom, is very close to the beach, which the students love, as do I. But Irvine has also been on the FBI's Safest City in America list. So it's a very comfortable, safe area for students to live. We have over 430 students from over 40 different countries in our school. And that includes a total of about 13,500 students locally that study with us. And then we offer over 80 different majors in both the arts and sciences. So of course, looking for your major is important. We offer probably business administration, computer science, and then visual arts, as well as a pre-engineering path would be our most popular programs. And that's my contact information there, and I'll type it in the chat in a bit as well.
So I just want to give a little highlight about the transfer process at the University of Oregon. We are a 4-year comprehensive research institution. And I want to say off the bat, you know, you might be asking yourself, why would, I'm a 4-year university. We have our first year freshmen coming in. Why would we be talking about community college? Well, we really like our transfer students. A community college, as Christine already pointed out, is a great place for students who either weren't prepared academically to start at a four-year college like the University of Oregon, our incoming GPA for the last year was 3.75, which is quite competitive. And many students really feel that they're not prepared to attend a four-year college right away. So by attending a two-year community college, it gives them an opportunity to get their feet wet, to kind of get some experience, feel more comfortable, and they really, really excel. They really do well when they transfer to the University of Oregon. But how do you do this? Well, for the University of Oregon, my first advice is, while you're attending a community college, if you're in the United States, take advantage of that opportunity to visit some of the campuses that you think you might want to transfer to. Irvine is in California, which is just south of Oregon. It's not as close as San Francisco, but it isn't, all the way across the country. So take a weekend, come up to Oregon, visit the campus, or visit other campuses in California. See what they're like. Decide if you want to stay near a big city like Los Angeles, or go someplace a little more rural, maybe someplace a little quieter. That's my first thing. Take advantage of those 2 years, not just to prepare for your academic life, but for the type of environment that you want to live in for those last 2 years. Begin your application in the middle of your second year. After you finish your first term in your second year at community college, that's really when you want to start applying, depending on the institution. You want to have at least your first years of grades ready to send. Keep in mind that because you're coming as a transfer student, we need to see all your grades, all your official grades, before we can help you determine how many of those credits are going to transfer, and help you decide, or help you see, how long it's going to take you to complete your four-year degree. A good thing to keep in mind is that there are some majors that are very impacted or very strict. So if you want to study, for example, at the University of Oregon, architecture. Architecture is one of our very popular and more competitive degrees, and I would not recommend a student trying to transfer into that degree program because it would be very difficult. But out of our over 200 other degree programs, there are well over 200 that you can transfer into quite easily. But make sure that you understand that as you're thinking about the transfer process. And think about the courses that you want to take that are going to prepare you and make it easier for you to transfer. And again, you can talk to academic counselors, admissions counselors, as you're thinking about transferring, and ask some of these questions along the way. That's another great advantage of doing a community college degree first, is that you're in the US, you can ask these questions, you can visit the campus, you can get a lot of information without having to stay up until 2 in the morning to talk to somebody. Make sure you request your official transcripts and have those sent. I mentioned that before. We do need to see the official transcripts directly from your community college and have those sent to the different colleges that you might be applying to. Be careful to understand the minimum admission requirements for the university. Oftentimes, they are very different from the first year admission requirements. For example, at the University of Oregon, for a first incoming freshman, you would likely have to have, at a minimum, bare minimum, a 3.0 GPA, okay? But as a transfer student, you can transfer in with a 2.5 GPA based on your community college record. Also, we anticipate that you would have taken your first year English course, 2 semesters of first year freshman English at the community college. And so you would not be required to take any kind of English language proficiency exam because you already met the college level of proficiency requirement. Then check into any transfer scholarships available, okay? You don't want to miss any deadlines. You don't want to leave any money behind. There are often transfer scholarships available. Keep in mind, these are not going to be as large as a first-year scholarship, but also keep in mind, you already gave yourself a big scholarship by going to a community college. So you saved a lot of money, and hopefully that will make it easier to cover the cost of your final 2 years. And finally, we do need your final transcripts. Once you complete your final semester or quarter at the community college, the first thing you need to do is to go to the registrar's office and say, please send my final transcripts as soon as possible directly to University of Oregon or wherever you're transferring to. So next. So let me tell you a little bit about the University of Oregon. We are a comprehensive 4-year research institution. We have about 18,000 undergraduate students, about 22,000 students altogether with our graduate students. We have over 250 academic programs. And because we're a research institution, we are a member of the Association of American Universities, which includes universities like Stanford and Berkeley and other campuses that you probably heard about. As you can see, we're in the Pacific Northwest, just above California, and it's always beautiful and green all throughout the year. Even today, it was about 70 degrees, gorgeous weather, as we prepare this weekend for our homecoming festivities. So it's a great environment. Like Irvine, we are one of the safest cities in the United States. So we have a lot in common with the community college in Irvine. Next. Again, we're a Tier 1 national public institution. And while if you come directly to the University of Oregon, you can't take advantage of that extra year of OPT. Many of our students do take advantage of the opportunities to do research or to work directly with professors in an internship or other activity. And finally, I think that's it. Do we have one more slide? Yes, okay, here's my contact information. You can certainly reach out to me directly if you want any other information about the University of Oregon, either to come directly or as a transfer student. So please reach out to us at any time. And finally, thank you for your time. We do have some questions in our chat. I am going to read them off, and either Christina and I or will respond to them. So the first question is, do extracurricular activities differ between 2- and 4-year colleges? So do you want to answer this first, and then I'll follow up?
Sure. Yeah, I think they probably do, because most community colleges are not residential campuses. We don't typically have dormitories. So the level of activities, I think, is probably a little bit less on community college. However, community colleges do still offer a lot of things for students: clubs, sports, visual performing arts, a lot of student support. That's probably one of the things to research also when you're looking. Like, if that's something that's important to you, you're going to want to see what is available and what is available in the international student program, or is there an international student program at the community college? Because that's going to be a really important office for you to help you along the path. And oftentimes they will do activities and provide social support.
Yeah, and I just want to add that I think that just like the classes are more intimate and smaller, the activities at a community college are also more intimate and smaller. You often can attend a lecture by a famous author or a performance, and you might be in a group of maybe 50 students rather than in a large auditorium with thousands of people. I'd say that at four-year university, you do have the range and level of activity is quite large. University of Oregon, I think they say we have over 3,000 activities a year. So there's always something going on. There's also often, I think some two-year colleges do have a Greek life, but that is more common at a four-year institution. So the next question is, how can a student find a place to work using OPT? How much does the community college provide support? Christina.
I think that's going to vary by community college, and probably a lot of the answers are going to be similar in that. Community colleges, by and large, because we do vocational degrees, we do all have career centers that provide opportunities and information about how to find jobs and possibly some local jobs in the area. We do also have some contracted employers that we work with as well for student employment. But I feel like more support is offered at the university for career placement a little bit than at the community college level. So it really is going to differ by school.
Yeah, I would say that, generally there's an International Student Services Office, whether you're going to community college or a four-year institution, and they often also provide support apart from the Career Services Office. Mm-hmm. I would say at a four-year institution, we have the advantage of just spending more time, so you have more opportunity to engage in some of the career services activities that occur throughout your academic career. So the next question is regarding housing. Where do students live if the community college does not have on-campus housing? Is it easy to find off-campus housing?
That definitely varies by school. Now, some community colleges do have dormitories, a very small number, but there are some that do have dormitories on campus. And those that have a pretty active international student program will have resources for housing available. So Irvine Valley College, for example, we work with some host family providers, homestay providers, so you can live with a local U.S. homestay family. We also have a lot of apartments in the area, so we'll list those resources on our website. And we also work with some providers that will place students into furnished apartments in the local area. So I would say most community colleges that are actively recruiting international students that have kind of a full-fledged international program have some housing support available for students, even if we don't have on-campus housing.
Yeah, and just as an example of a community college that does have housing, there's a community college just very close to University of Oregon called Lane Community College that has its own dorms with over 100 beds, and they regularly house students there, in addition to having some of the other options like homestays and temporary housing that we've already discussed. So it really, do some research, find out a little bit about the neighborhood, what the housing costs are, ask the community college as you're going through the admissions process. That's a great question to ask. Next, I think this is for Christina. Do you offer non-degree short-term programs for international students? And what are the procedures to enter into such a program?
I think that would be closer to the gap year type program where students come over just to study for a shorter period of time. They're not necessarily looking to get a degree. They just want an experience in the US. The procedures are exactly the same. You just apply for IBC, doing the regular application process. And then when you get to campus, you're going to work with our academic counselors and you're going to let them know, hey, I'm just here for kind of a short period of time. I think I'm interested in psychology. What classes would be good for me? Or I just want to do the arts. And the counselors are going to help you plan out a schedule of classes that are of interest to you based on the time that you're here in the US to study. So yes, we do. And it's a similar application procedure. And most community colleges do something similar.
Yeah. So next, I want to be enrolled at some California State University after completing the transfer credit courses at a community college in California. Which college do you recommend to be enrolled in? Well, I can't imagine that Christina is going to say anything less than.
I would be doing a disservice to my institution if I didn't say start at Irvine Valley College. We do have the #1 university transfer rate in our state, so you're really starting at a great spot to come to Irvine Valley College. And we have a lot of support. Now, Dr. Varela was talking about some really important things when you're looking for university transfer. And one of those that we need to mention also is working with the academic counselor at your community college. Every community college has academic counselors that help students, make sure you're on the right path to graduate and transfer. Many, including Irvine Valley College, have just academic counselors that work only with our international students. So they're trained in the immigration regulations, they're trained in the specifics for international transfer. So it's really important that you meet with them pretty regularly to make sure you're on track. They'll help you research schools, especially if you're going out of state, to make sure what you're taking matches what you need to take for the out-of-state schools. And they'll let you know in California which degrees you're taking that have guaranteed transfer to some of the California State University or CSU programs.
Thank you. Wow. Next, planning to start studying at a community college next summer. Before that, I would like to learn English language. I would like to know about good ESL programs and community colleges you recommend. Christina.
Well, that's a tricky question. So that's where your research is going to come in. So for example, Irvine Valley College, we actually are not authorized to issue I-20 for ESL study. So all of our students have to have a TOEFL or IELTS or Duolingo, some English proficiency score to come to us. Some other schools, many other schools don't require that and might have their own ESL program on site that you can study there, as I mentioned. I think probably a good place to kind of research ESL schools would be EducationUSA, because they have a lot of information on the different programs available throughout the US. So that's where I would probably tell you to start your search.
Many community colleges do have ESL programs, and many four-year institutions do have ESL programs. So just like as we said, do your research, and I'm sure you'll find a number of different programs that have those opportunities. The main thing is to make sure that the ESL program is accredited. That means that it's recognized by an academic agency that gives it the stamp of approval and says, this is a good program. If you go to an ESL program that is associated with a community college or a four-year college, it's almost guaranteed 100% that program is recognized and a good program. There are some private standalone ESL programs that are really good, but you want to check them out. Okay. So the next question, is it true that not many four-year colleges have scholarships for transfer students? I would say many four-year colleges have scholarships. What the difference is in the level and the amount. oftentimes the level of the scholarship and the amount offered to transfer students is much less. And again, that's because you are likely only attending the four-year institution for your final 2 years of your studies. And so in many ways, you've already given yourself a great scholarship by taking advantage of the lower cost by attending somewhere else. I think this is a good place to also mention that the transfer process, while ideally is good from a community college in the United States, does also work if you are transferring from an institution in your home country. So you can transfer after 2 years or 3 years to a university in the United States, although that's a bit more tricky and not something we can talk about today. It just involves a couple extra steps. But to get back to the questions about scholarships, there are scholarships. You have to do your research, and you have to watch those deadlines, because sometimes the deadlines will be a bit early, and you don't want to miss the deadlines for applying for those additional scholarships. But again, you've already given yourself a great big head start by reducing the cost by as much as 2/3 or 60–70% less than you would pay by going to a four-year college. So take advantage of that and make sure that you plan ahead, for whatever expenses may come up in your third or fourth year. Next, when I submit a transfer application, do I have to know what major I want to? Is it possible to change my major? Okay, well, you've probably all heard that you can change your major or even start university or college without knowing what major you're in. That's very true for American universities. That's part of the choice that you can build into your course of study if you're not sure what you're majoring. But generally, when you're transferring from a community college into a four-year university, you're going to be going into your third year of university. At that point, most students, you really do want to know what your major is going to be, because if you're still not sure what your major is going to be, you're likely not going to be able to graduate in 2 more years, okay, if you're still looking for that major. But this is another great reason why going to community college is a great advantage, because you get the opportunity to take courses from many different backgrounds, many different majors. You get to sit down with an academic advisor, talk about things you like to do, things you don't like to do, and hopefully by the middle or end of your second year, you're ready to commit to what you want to study at the university level. You can enter in and change your major. It's just likely that it's going to take you an extra year to graduate. So you may be a fifth-year senior before you actually complete your four-year academic degree. At the community college, is there a choice of doing a double major? That's kind of.
I mean, I think there is a choice of doing a double major. In fact, I just had a student ask me this the other day. It's not necessarily advisable at a community college, especially if you're on a transfer pathway, because it's just going to lengthen the amount of time that you're studying and not really value added. I think the double major aspect is more something you might want to consider and save for when you're at the university, as opposed to doing it at the community college.
Okay, yeah. So I recently saw the US PBS news saying that many students cannot transfer from community colleges to four-year universities. Is this true? I would like to know more about this issue if you know. Well, I can't speak to what you saw in the news. Maybe Christina saw that report, but I will say that, you know, any student who is diligent and is focused and is working towards a goal generally doesn't have a lot of issues in going through the transfer process. I know there might be students who start a community college degree without a lot of direction, and maybe they are the ones who have trouble completing or transferring. I'm not sure who they were talking about, but in my experience, and I'm talking about myself and some of my friends who attend community college, we all transferred to four-year universities. We all got our bachelor's degrees, if not our master's degrees. And I think the structure and path is definitely there for students who want to take advantage of it. Can you say anything else more about this, Christina?
I have not heard that US PBS news, but I'm totally going to look it up after this. But, you know, again, over 50% of bachelor's degrees in the US started at some point at a community college. So that's a pretty high number, which would lead me to concur with what Dr. Varela said. And it's more maybe about student applying themselves. But by and large, if you're coming to a community college, it's a very widely accepted way to get into the university system in the US.
Yeah, and generally, international students have a lot of focus, so they do complete the degrees and move on. So can you talk about or how you keep students safe? Christina, do you want to do this first?
I think, you know, unfortunately, safety is a huge concern for folks coming to the US because of lots of things going on in the US, which makes us all a little sad. However, you know, safety is of paramount importance to universities and colleges here. Our students are, you know, people that we care about, that we want them to not have to worry about that issue. We want them to focus on their studies. So most campuses have some sort of campus police that actively is available on campus. They provide services for students. We have a student escort service, for example, if you have a late night class and wanting someone to help you get to your car, that's available. We have we just had the great shakeout today in terms of earthquake safety. So we all did that on campus. So there's lots of things going on campus in terms of just general safety for students. And then, you know, the idea of equity and diversity and inclusion, DEI, is something that all campuses in the US are really focusing on to make sure that students of all nationalities and backgrounds are feeling comfortable and safe and having the same opportunities. And so that's something that all campuses are really working on right now. What else would you say about that?
I would say that, this is something it's not just about the campus, it's about the community. Another thing to research, you know, Christina mentioned that Irvine is one of the safest cities in the United States. So is Eugene. It's a smaller city, but we pride ourselves on the sense of community. You know, during COVID, we were really concerned about each other's health. And as a result, over 97% of our students, faculty, and staff were fully vaccinated. That happened because we wanted to keep each other healthy. So these are just some signs that you can look for that tell you that, you know, everybody's kind of looking out for each other. And that we're really working hard in many different ways to keep each other safe, whether it's through the campus police, whether it's an escort service or a shuttle service, whether it's just making sure the campus has good lighting at night. All these things are important pieces and good questions to ask before you start your academic career. Also keep in mind that every campus is required to report every year about crime and other statistics, safety statistics that have happened on their campus in the previous year. That's, you can look it up. You can ask them for what's called their Clery report, and you can actually see how many crimes were committed on campus, what types of crimes, and that can give you an idea of how safe that campus or the community is. Okay, we have a couple more questions, a little more time. So you said earlier that the admission system is much easier than a four-year university. I think that means most of the applicants who meet admissions requirements could be accepted. Yes, exactly. We recognize that going to community college is a good measure of the fact that you will be successful at our university. Most people think that the admissions process is about keeping people out, but that's not true. A good admissions process is not about keeping people out, but of being able to make a decision that's best for the student. When I'm doing admissions reviews, I want to make sure that that student is going to be successful at the University of Oregon. So I'm looking for certain things that are going to communicate that to me. When you attend a community college, we recognize that you've acclimated to American culture, you spent some time learning English, you already know what it's like to be in a classroom, you've proven that you can study and keep up with the work. And so while the general GPA requirement is lower, it doesn't mean that we're lowering our standards. It simply means that we recognize by actually doing the work that you're going to be successful at the University of Oregon.
And I think for community colleges, our mission is to be open access, right? And so our admission process and ability to admit students is much easier. It is more open admission. So following along those lines, yes, we are a bit easier to get into.
Yeah. And final question. Could you tell me some tips to how to choose a suitable community college, such as location, transfer rate, etc.?
Yes, definitely. Community colleges, our mission is pretty much all the same. We are there to either help students do a vocational degree and be able to enter the workforce after 2 years, or to complete a transfer pathway. So we're all kind of doing the same thing, but what you're going to want to look at is how well are we doing it depending on what your goal is. So what is the transfer rate? You should be looking at that. If your goal is to get into, UC Berkeley or UCLA, you want to look at the schools to see where they're transferring students to, what their transfer numbers are, what their focus is. Obviously, you want to see if they have major courses that you're interested in, that you think you might be interested in, so that you're getting that major prep for the schools that you eventually transfer to. What are the supports? And not just the supports in general, but specifically for international students. International students have unique needs that go above and beyond the domestic student. I mean, certainly your immigration regulations are only one, very important, but one aspect of kind of the unique needs that you guys have while you're with us. So is there an international office on campus at the community college? Do they have academic counseling just for international students? Is there immigration advising? What's the service you're getting while you're applying? That's key. If you're applying and you're contacting the international office and you're not hearing from the international office at the school, and this is the same for any school, you're not hearing from them for weeks. What's that telling you about the services that they're offering? You want someone that's answering you quickly, because that's showing that they're in tune to the student, and that's probably going to be reflective of what you're going to get in terms of services when you're on campus. And then, of course, the location, not just the safety of the location, but if you don't like lots of snow, you're probably not going to want to go to Wyoming, right? If you don't like huge cities and you like more quiet, New York City, although it's a great city, might not be your thing. So you need to think about what you enjoy and look at that location because you're going to be there a long time. So you want to enjoy yourself as well and be comfortable. Any other thoughts on that, Alfredo?
I would just also look if you have your sights set on a specific university, again, see if that community college has a good transfer rate or has a relationship. You know, maybe you can ask the community college, does University of Oregon visit Irvine Community College at a college fair or something to give you the opportunity to talk to somebody from the university. So things like that, if you know where you want to go next. So I think that's, other than that, I think everything Christina said was great. You know, think about your environment, think about where you want to be, think about the course of study, and those are all great things to look at, including some of the other things that we talked about, like safety and academic performance. And also, don't just look at the cost of the tuition at the community college. You may want to consider the cost of living in that community, because that's a cost that's often not part of what you're looking at when you're looking at community college tuition, because unless they have dorms. But anyway, 皆さん、本当にありがとうございました。
Yeah, thank you very much, Alfred and Christina, for the great presentations, as well as the taking care of so many questions. It was so great, you know, to learn many things about transferring and community college and so on. So I'd like to say thank you so much. Thanks a million to your great presentation. So I hope you also enjoy this webinar. And once again, I'd like to thank you, you know, both for your presentations and for staying up so late in your time zone. So thank you very much. And I hope we can see you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so I will stop recording now.